Everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education of Anne Arundel County. This meeting is being televised live on AACPS TV and streamed on AACPS's YouTube channel. General information and protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign by the doorway as you enter the room, so please make sure you read those if you have not already done so. At this time, we'd like to begin with our invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. And now for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're going to move on to item 2.03, approval of the minutes of the Board of Education meeting. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes as written.
Thank you. Do we have consensus? Thank you. Next, we have item 2.04. That's the establishment of the agenda order. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Consensus? Thank you. So next, we're going to be moving on to item 3, public hearing on the superintendent's recommended FY 2025 capital budget and 6-year capital plan, CIP, the capital improvement plan. I believe we have one individual speaking this evening. Lisa Van Bursick. Hi. Good evening.
Good evening, Board of Education and Dr. Bedell. I'm Lisa Van Buskirk, Start School Leader, Anne Arundel County. I'm here in support of the $1.3 million to initiate a bus facility design and in support of potentially $9 million for the next year for the initial construction of the facility for both bus maintenance staff and the routing staff. Thank you, Dr. Bedell, for listening to my capital budget testimony from a year ago when I read quotes from the January 2020 Prismatic Service report describing the Millersville facility as, quote, not an appropriate work environment, end quote. Similarly, the bus repair facilities were described in the report as, quote, minimal and noticeably primitive, end quote. I appreciate that you took the time to review and act upon the 2020 Prismatic Report recommendations for transportation facilities. AACPS employees have performed admirably over the past year, keeping our buses on the road, working with contractors to take us from 80 bus driver vacancies to none, aggressively contracting for and implementing the alternative vehicle program, both for AACPS employee drivers and its contractors, implementing a more targeted notification system this year, and most importantly, safely transporting nearly 60,000 students. While perhaps not as eye-catching as a gut renovation or new schools, providing transportation staff with safe and healthy facilities in which to complete their important jobs is the least we as a county can do in appreciation for their Herculean tasks of safely transporting our students. Please fully fund the request for design services for a transportation facility. If the board funds this request and follows up next year with construction funding, members of this board, especially those not seeking re-election next term, may take satisfaction in knowing that one of the last major outstanding items from the Prismatic Report will be complete, something that you guys started way back in February of 2019. Thank you.
Thank you. And so now we're going to move on to our public comments on agenda items. This is one of the opportunities that the board provides to hear the views and receive the advice of community members. The members of this board appreciate hearing from interested citizens. As appropriate, we will refer your concerns to the superintendent for follow-up by his staff. The board will hear public comment from up to 10 total speakers, combination of virtual and in-person, per agenda item, excluding personnel items, reports, and recognitions, during a single public comment section in the early portion of the meeting. The board will hear public comment from up to 10 total speakers on items not on the agenda, excluding any student-specific or personnel items near the end of the meeting. The link to register to comment before the board opened at 3 p.m. on the Friday prior to this meeting. Registration closed at noon on the Monday prior to this meeting. Speakers may sign up for no more than 2 agenda items, but only once on any individual agenda item. For any item with more than 10 registered speakers, the board will employ a lottery process to select the speakers. Registrants who secure a slot to speak were notified by email at the email address they provided when they registered. All speakers will be allotted 2 minutes and must address the specifics of the agenda item for which they sign up. No speaker substitutions will be permitted. If your name is called and you are not present, we will move on to the next speaker. For anyone who was not selected to speak at today's meeting, you may email your comments to the board office at boardoffice@aacps.org. While we encourage public input on policies, programs, and practices within the purview of this board and the school system, this is not the proper forum to address specific student or employee matters or to comment on matters that do not relate to public education in Anne Arundel County. We encourage everyone to utilize existing dispute resolution processes as appropriate. I remind everyone that any inappropriate personnel remarks or other behavior that disrupts or interferes with the conduct of this meeting are out of order. Persons using language that is threatening or promotes violence against members of this body or Anne Arundel County Public School employees are subject to legal penalties. Persons who otherwise disrupt or disturb this meeting will not be allowed to continue their remarks and will be asked to leave the meeting. It is not the board's general practice to engage in question and answer questions or sessions with speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking. Handouts should be given to the board assistant. I ask that speakers observe the 2-minute clock. A yellow light will shine when you have 30 seconds remaining and a tone will sound when your time has expired. Please conclude your remarks when you hear the tone. If you continue after your time has expired, the microphone will be turned off. It could also be turned off if a speaker addresses specific student or employee matters or are commenting on matters not related to public education in Anne Arundel County. So this evening, I believe we have one speaker speaking on agenda items. It's Nicole Disney Bates.
Good evening. I have a question. Since no one else is speaking, I feel like I should get more time here. All right. Well, good evening, Mr. Silkworth, Dr. Bedell, Board of Education. It's been a while since we've been together. In case you've forgotten, I'm Nicole Disney Bates, TAC President. I always like to start my speeches and testimony with a story. 1 year ago, I stood before you, and my youngest was in preschool, a new school for her, wearing her usual attire that goes between a princess outfit and pajamas. She's independent, funny, and a wonderful kid, but yet I worried. Change is hard at the start. You just never know how it's going to play out. The same is true here. I would say that we went through some transitions with myself, a new superintendent, but much like how the story played out for my youngest, our story has played out well. We see the success in AACPS. So today, I will spare you my boat analogy because our boat is doing just fine. Our contract this year, the increasing starting salaries, the COLA, the steps, this contract had it all. But what about this coming year? Will AACPS continue to be competitive? Will AACPS continue to find creative ways to thank their staff? This is the year to continue to choose our teachers, our support staff, our admin, because we can't be competitive without each other. And our students will not be able to compete in this world, this economy, without the best. So my hope is that we keep being the best. And by being the best, we will be the most competitive school district in the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So that does conclude our public comments on agenda items this evening. We'll be moving on to item 5.01, our CRESC report.
Good evening, Vice President Silkworth, members of the board, and Dr. Riddell. My name is Michelle Fidel. I am a sophomore at Chesapeake High School. My pronouns are she, her, and I am very grateful to serve as the CRAS Secretary of Education. So the CRAS executive team has hosted 2 meetings since my last report. Our first virtual town hall on September 6th and our executive meeting on September 13th. Students were able to share concerns, hear department updates, and explore student leadership opportunities beyond CRASC. In addition, Jacob Urban Davis, our parliamentarian and chair of our Constitution Revisions Committee, hosted a parliamentary procedure training for the executive team. The legislative department of CRASC held its first ever kickoff conference on Saturday, September 9th at the Severna Park Library. Our executive team, along with students from across AACPS, attended leadership workshops, took part in a service project, and heard from a guest speaker. Former CRAS president and AACC student trustee Connor Curran shared his insights and experiences relating to his leadership journey in AACPS. This event was an astounding success. Well done, Legislative Department. The Maryland General Assembly Student Page Program is a prestigious opportunity open to seniors interested in witnessing the legislative process in action. Applications are open now and will close on Friday, September 29th. Interviews will be conducted on October 12th. 10 students and 2 alternates will be selected to represent Anne Arundel County during the 446th session of the General Assembly. Details and the application can be found on the CRASC website. Let's Talk Justice hosted an information night on September 18th, where students were able to learn about the organization and its mission to engage, educate, and empower students. There are many opportunities for students passionate about equity and social justice to get involved with Let's Talk Justice. More details can be found in the LTJ Brightspace and on the Let's Talk Justice website. We are thrilled to announce that the CRAS Communication Department has published our first newsletter for the 2023 to 24 school year. Check it out on the CRAS website, Brightspace, and on our Instagram. This month is Hispanic Heritage Month, and we like to emphasize the importance of their rich and unique culture as we celebrate and spread awareness this month. Speaking of Hispanic Heritage Month celebration, Season 2 of Teen Talk premieres on Wednesday, October 4th at 9 p.m. New show host Zoe Prandy will be highlighting this topic and speaking with students about ways they are celebrating their heritage. A summer intern from CAF South, Brisa Perez, created this poster, which will be delivered for schools for display. And if any students would like to learn more about CRASC, make sure to check the CRASC calendar on our website for a list of upcoming events and leadership events. Thank you, and see you in October for the next CRASC update. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you as always. Next, we have item 5.02, our PTA report.
Good evening, Vice President Silkworth, Dr. Bedell, and board members. First, I would like to say welcome back to all our teachers, students, and administrators, bus drivers, and building staff. We hope 2023-2024 school year is a great year filled with fun academic success and lots of new friends. I do apologize. My name is Christine Carano, the president of the Anne Arundel County PTA. AACC PTA and our local PTAs are committed to supporting you all through this school year in any way we can. Please also consider supporting your local PTA by joining this school year. Remember, there is no T in PTA without you. I also challenge each of you, our school board members and central office employees, to join at least one local PTA in our county. For the 2023-2024 school year, the AACC PTA is committed to advocating for our students, staff, and school community. We will do this by finding ways to take appropriate action and give support to issues that are important to our families in our county. We are committed to help find ways to ease the struggle in transportation staff shortages, and as always, closing opportunity gaps inside the classroom. Our first AACC PTA meeting of the year will be held on Monday, October 9th, 2023 at 6 p.m. This meeting will be held virtually. We will be discussing compliance, membership, and ways to be supportive to our community. Future training dates will also be announced during our meeting. We encourage local PTAs to attend training. We also have an upcoming financial review workshop on October 4th, 2023 at the Severn Library, 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. PTAs can sign up using our AACC PTA Facebook page. We already have 18 PTAs signed up so far. AACC PTA is excited for the 2023-2024 National PTA Reflections Program. The NPTA Reflections Program is an arts program for students in grades pre-K through 12. Arts categories include dance, choreography, film production, photography, music composition, literature, visual arts, and special artists. Student artists compete at local, county, state, and national PTA levels. The deadline for submissions is December 15th, 2023. To learn more about the program, visit the Reflections page on the National PTA website at pta.org. I would like to close in saying that we are proud of all our local PTAs over the past years. Please let us know how we can support your PTA by contacting us via our website at www.aaccpta.org. We know this school year presents new challenges, and we are all feeling the impacts. We need to stay positive, have grace and patience, and work with AACPS to find solutions. In the end, we want our children to succeed, and for this to happen, we need to work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next item is item 5.03, the CAC report.
Good evening, Vice President Silkworth, members of the board, Dr. Bedell. It's my honor to be here this evening as the chair of the CAC, your CAC, on behalf of our members and our executive team, which is comprised of Vice Chair Erica McFarland and Secretary Jamie Herman Kugan. The CAC has met 2 times since our last report. August 30th, 2023, we met to have our new member orientation. The CAC leadership, along with Jennifer Lombardi from the Office of the Superintendent, met with the new members and talked about the CAC, its role in pulling together information and advising the Board of Directors, or the Board of Education. It was a good meeting, and I think we left everyone knowing each other a little bit better and looking forward to the future year. Just a week or more so ago, on September 11th, we held our first regular meeting. We heard from board member Dana Schalheim, of course. Nice inspirational speech. We spent some time filling the vacancies on the various standing committees that we have to other committees of the AACPS, including the Calendar Committee, Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee, Security, PTA, and the Health Education MOI. We also spent some time in a breakout session getting to know each other, the clusters a little bit better, and using the very, very interesting 2023 Educational Facilities Master Plan to dive a little deeper on each cluster and to pull out interesting information. I know I myself was surprised to learn that sewage availability was one critical part of this plan, and that just fascinated me to no end, but enough about that. Our next meeting is October 9th. Look forward to reviewing the information about the policies that we'll be bringing or researching for you, and we'll be doing more to organize around that at our October meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next, we're going to be moving on to item 5.04, the President's Report. I would like to make sure that everybody knows that I'm sitting in this evening for Dr. Tobin. Dr. Tobin is unable to be with us this evening as a result of some family matters. And so I'll be giving a report. It will be very brief, just several things. Many of us attended the community meeting at the Wiley Bates Legacy Center on September 12th, I believe it was. Dr. Bedell presented. As always, he did a fantastic job. He's already created amazing and profitable relationships with so many of our stakeholders and partners in this county. County Executive Pittman was there. Many of my colleagues were there as well. We as a school system cannot accomplish our mission alone. We must collaborate. We must work together with all of our stakeholders. This, for me, was a great event. Thank you, Dr. Bedell. It was a wonderful presentation. And we always ask everyone to #be present for our kids. Hopefully that'll resonate with everyone. A second, on September the 14th, we had the privilege and the honor to attend a celebration at Germantown Elementary School for Miss Wanda Offer. To honor Miss Offer for her, listen to this, folks, 50 years of service to Anne Arundel County Public Schools, Germantown students. Miss Offer has touched the lives of so many in our community, and so many people showed up to honor her. Actually, there were several former students of mine who happened to be related to Miss Offer who showed up. We thank Miss Offer, and we certainly wish her the best. Miss Offer was present for 50 years. I really and sincerely hope that our teachers and staff realize how much of an impact they have on our students. I don't know that Miss Offer really did realize the impact. She had an impact that was just tremendous on that community. Our students were blessed to have had Miss Offer. We are blessed to have so many great educators in AACPS who care so much about our students. When we care about students, they care about themselves. So congratulations, Miss Offer. Great 50 years. Best of luck. So that does conclude the President's Report. We'll move on to item 5.05, the Budget Committee Report.
Thank you,
Ms.
Mr. Silkworth. Thank you. The stated goals of the Budget Committee are to, number one, oversee the budget process for the Board of Education. Number two, communicate to the superintendent in advance of his budget presentation so the budget reflects the fiscal priorities of the full board. Number three, facilitate the processes to determine the priorities of the full budget and the board's internal budget. And number four, facilitate the amendment process to be efficient and transparent to other members and to the public. The Budget Committee will organize the information in three main areas: board priorities, board office and internal audit office budget, and finally, full budget adoption. This committee typically meets the third Monday of every month at noon or the third Tuesday if a Monday is an approved holiday. The Budget Committee approved a calendar and timeline which was sent to the full board and will serve as notice of expected due dates. This operational outline for the year was distributed to the board on August 9th. The outline contained an overview of the goals, processes, and relevant dates relating to bookmarks in the budget calendar, as well as due dates for time-sensitive items that members will need to return. Board members were asked to submit their FY25 budget priorities for the committee to compile and present at this meeting. This list was submitted to the board and posted in its entirety to the public agenda for comment. There was no dissent on the goals or timeline. The first meeting of the Budget Committee was September 18th, 2023. The budget priorities sent by members were ranked in order of the priority in which they were submitted, and then the committee reviewed them and prepared a working draft. The committee unanimously approved moving this draft to the full board, and it was sent on Monday in advance of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frank. We'll move on to item 5.06, Equity Committee Report. Mr. Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Silkworth. The Equity Committee held its first meeting yesterday and had multiple staff members present. We did a quick round of introductions, then discussed how we can ensure all students feel a sense of belonging in our schools. We continued the discussion on workforce diversity and the current measures AACPS is taking to hire more diverse educators to match the increasing diversity of our student population. As we embark on a project we would like to take on this year as a committee, I will be reaching out to all board members for inputs on any suggestions they may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lynn. So we'll move on to item 5.07, our superintendent's report. Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Good evening to those who are viewing online and those who are here in attendance. I want to start off my report by offering congratulations to Annapolis High School physical education, health, and wellness teacher, Mary Kay Connerton, our 2023 AACPS Teacher of the Year, for being named one of 7 Maryland Teacher of the Year finalists. This is the 8th time in 9 years that AACPS has had a state finalist, and 4 of our teachers have won the award since the program began. The Maryland Teacher of the Year will be announced on October 13th. We are all rooting for you, Ms. Connerton. Congratulations again. On another note, we have some more good news when it comes to our vacancies. We continue to see numbers well below last year's levels, and that's good news for our school system, and most importantly for our students. As you can see on this chart, we are at 104 classroom teacher vacancies compared to 212 last year at this time. We have 0 bus driver vacancies, and our alternative vehicle initiative, we have 3 vacancies at this time. Although I believe we have 13 people currently in the pipeline to be trained to drive those alternative vehicles. We know that with transportation, we still have to build a bench. And so if I'm not mistaken, I believe we had about 53 people who are currently in training to meet their CDL requirements and allow for us to also have a bench. But I am very pleased with the progress that we have made in that area. Custodians, you can see the difference there of 26 compared to 77 last year. Food service workers, 95. The reason why we're sharing this with you all is because we know that some of the greatest recruiters are those who reside within the community. And if you can continue to push people towards Anne Arundel County Public Schools, we will assure you that we will definitely take a deep look at them and hopefully be able to help secure and hire some of those individuals. The work on our new strategic plan continues, and the steering committee that will be a key part of this work is being formed now. I want everybody to know that there will be many opportunities for public input. This plan is not just a school system plan. It must be everybody's plan, and you will be hearing much more about the process in the coming months. The anticipated completion date will be during the March and April period for a July 1 implementation. We are excited about what we're getting ready to embark on with this strategic plan, and you see the areas that we will focus on as we build out our goals in the strategic direction around equity, innovation, student academic, social, and emotional growth, and adherence to the Blueprint Law. As you heard a few minutes ago from Vice Chair Silkworth, our team continues to meet with groups outside of our school system to collaboratively work on solutions to issues that present themselves in our communities, but most importantly, in our schools. I had the opportunity to speak to the Caucus of African American Leaders last week, and earlier this week, some of our principals and other members of our senior leadership team joined Dr. Tobin and I in meeting with Annapolis Mayor Gavin Buckley, members of his team, and representatives of some community organizations. I appreciate the mayor's initiative in setting this meeting up, And I believe it will be the first of many to try to tackle some of the issues that we are dealing with in the city of Annapolis. With that being said, I want to put in yet another plug for our hashtag Be Present initiative, which is now up and running at all of our schools. We need the community's help in our schools. It's just that simple. We have to do this together. To be clear, we are not looking for people who want to discipline students. We have certified people trained to handle those responsibilities. We are looking for people who are interested in building relationships with our students, possibly mentoring them, and just being a positive and supportive presence in our schools. This is an easy way to be a part of lifting up all of our community's children. We'll even pay for the background check and provide training. You can find more information at www.aacps.org/be present. Finally, I want to update this board and the public on the next steps in our redistricting process. A public hearing on the two plans moved forward by the board will occur at 6 p.m. on Monday, October 2nd, here in the boardroom. It will be open to the public, but also live streamed for those who can't attend. A video of the briefing will be posted online for the public to view. A public hearing on those same plans will be held in this boardroom at 6 p.m. on Monday, October 16th. That hearing will also be streamed live. A link for people to sign up to speak will go public at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, October 11th. Let me say that again. A link for people to sign up to speak will go public at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, October 11th. Testimony will be taken in person and virtually. Information on plans under consideration can be found at www.aacps.org/redistricting. Mr. Vice Chair, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. So we're going to move on to consent items, award of contracts, items 6.01 to 6.08.
I move to bundle those, please.
We have a second? We have consensus? Ms. Howe, do we need to vote or consensus? Okay. Okay, so we have consensus. Dr. Bedell.
The superintendent recommends that the Board of Education authorize the award of contracts dotted 6.01 through 6.08.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any comments or questions? I see no lights. Ms. Howe?
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Mr. Lynn?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 7.01, administrative personnel appointments. I think we have one. This is for information only. Dr. Bedell?
Yeah, there's no action required at this point for the board to take.
Okay, thank you. Item 7.02, School Activity Funds Management, Code DF, first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. At this time, we will have Grace Wilson, who will come up to provide the first reading of the School Activity Funds Management Policy DF.
Good evening, Dr. Bedell, Vice President Silkworth, and members of the board. I'm Grace Wilson, Legislative and Policy Specialist. Policy DF, School Activity Funds Management, is before you this evening for first reading. The policy was adopted in December of 2011 and is being revised to remove the requirement that the board's internal audit staff audit the financial records of all school systems every 24 months and update style and formatting. After tonight's meeting, the policy will be posted for a 30-day public comment period. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this policy.
Okay, I see no lights. Ms. Ellis?
I just want to clarify, because there might be some people who hear that and have concerns or questions about, are we properly managing the funds? And so, Ms. Wilson, if you can elaborate, this doesn't mean that schools will not continue to be audited. Just
Absolutely. This policy was brought at the request of the board's internal auditor on the basis of a recommendation of the Gibson report, which recommended that this be removed from our policy because it would prevent the internal auditor from auditing other things as well. I will note in speaking with staff, this may result with our external auditor auditing these funds, but it does, the changes to the policy will still permit Mr. Reagan to audit these funds as needed and to analyze them for risk. It's just not a policy mandate.
great. Mr. Reagan, would you like to elaborate a little?
Yeah, for the record, Dan Regan, Director of Internal Audit. And I don't have much to add to that. I mean, I think a couple points of clarification. It doesn't prevent us from continuing to audit the school activity funds, but our charter says that we will align our plan to meet the risks that we assess in the organization. So the Gibson report had pointed out that this requirement had really prevented us from doing that, that it was taking us pretty much all of our time to cover these audits. School activity funds right now represent less than 1% of the total budget. Cash is being used a lot less at schools. So that risk is diminished. It has not gone away. It's still a tremendous piece of our annual plan, but this will allow us to comply with our charter by aligning that plan properly.
Thank you. And I didn't really have questions. I'm on the policy committee, chair of the policy committee, but I just thought the public would benefit. So thank you both for elaborating.
Ms. Corkadell?
Thank you, Vice President Silkworth. I too just wanted to comment on it now that Ms. Ellis had brought it up. I was chair of the audit committee when we went over some of the recommendations of our internal audit. So I guess to add to the public discourse would be that this suggestion was not isolated and just him recommending it to policy. This actually went through our audit committee and was also discussed by the board in advance because we want to work together as a team. And so I think this helps us achieve some of those objectives in a more efficient manner. So thank you very much for the recommendation. And I think that we did do a considerable amount of due diligence in its course. And I look forward to continuing to make renovations to and advancements and updates to our school system. This is just another one of those ways that we can more effectively support our education and give other opportunities for us to do so through our internal audit office. Thank you very much.
Okay, seeing no more lights. Thank you, Ms. Wilson, Mr. Reagan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that brings us to item 7.03, the fiscal year 2024 supplemental capital budget appropriation. Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Vice Chair. The superintendent recommends approval of the FY 2024 supplemental capital budget appropriation for the security-related upgrades, roof replacement, and Old Mill Middle School South submissions to the county executive and county council.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, do we have any comments or do we want to hear from Mr. Roof or you're here for questions?
Here for questions. There's no formal
Okay.
presentation.
Okay, seeing no lights, Ms. Howe.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Mr. Lynn?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. That brings up item 7.04, Superintendent's recommended fiscal year 2025 capital budget and 6-year capital improvement plan. Dr. Bedell.
The superintendent recommends that the Board of Education adopt the FY 2025 capital budget, 6-year plan, and state capital improvement plan.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. I'm looking at the lights. No lights appear. Okay. Ms. Howe.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Mr. Lynn?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
And Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. So that brings us to item 7.05, virtual day instruction plan for inclement weather. Dr. Bedell.
Thank you. The superintendent recommends adoption of the 2023-2024 virtual day instruction plan as presented at the board's September 6, 2023 meeting.
Good evening, Vice President Silkworth, Bob Moser, Chief Communications Officer. No presentation this evening.
Okay.
Morning, afternoon, evening, we'll get it all straight.
Okay. So
I'll move.
we have a motion.
Yeah, to
Second.
approve.
Second.
Okay. I do see some lights. I'm not sure who was first, Miss Ellis, Miss Corkadell. Okay, Miss Ellis.
I just want to thank everyone for weighing in. We had quite a bit of response, and boy, this one is a clear example of how you can come from different perspectives and have a completely different opinion on an issue. So, obviously we can't vote in a way that everyone's going to agree with. But that being said, when I read into the details of a lot of the concerns, I feel like, not everyone watches our board meetings and have the benefit of the entire presentation. But we had a very robust discussion about this is not the end of the snow day. And that there are circumstances when there's inclement weather and it can go on for days and impact education. And then we certainly hear on the back end when we utilize those days and kids are going in or are in school well into the summer, that's problematic for a lot of people. So I just wanted to share, that I think, again, we can't please everyone, but I think if everyone fully understood the plan, a lot of those fears would not be there.
Yeah, I want to respond to that because when we presented this to the board and the community last year, I think we were very crystal clear about what our intentions were with this recommendation. And last year, I said it will never be our intent to take away a snow day. If we are hit with a substantial amount of snow, I too, as a parent, would like to go out and sled with my daughter, just like other parents would like to enjoy that day with their kids. I said that also on September 6th. I don't know how much more clearer I can make it that we're not looking to take away snow days from our students. But what we are saying is that there will be cases where snow may be projected and snow may not hit the way that we think it's going to hit. And now we're sitting in ice and slush or things of that nature where we will not allow for a day to go wasted and then having to put on that additional day at the end of the school year where attendance rates will take a hit because students will not show up if it's beyond that last day of school. And now we have frustrated teachers when we have a tool that we could have utilized on a day where it clearly didn't warrant for us to not have instruction. So I don't know how much more clearer I can be on this matter, but to your point, Ms. Ellis, if people were to tune in or to go and look at the live stream, I think I've been very clear with my position on this matter. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. Ms. Corkadell.
Thank you, Vice President Silkworth. So last year I was one of the dissenting votes. And in the course of our presentation, deliberation, I did express some concerns, particularly with our younger kids. And I just want to say that I still have those concerns, particularly for the under third grade, because of the additional requirements and burden it places on those families, and some more so than others, especially those that cannot afford the flexibility of the at-home, and recognizing the importance for all the students in a family to be present during those virtual instruction days. I do think, however, the no foul plan, in place as it relates to testing and other types of things is appropriate. I would like to see maybe in the future a consideration, though, for those younger students as opposed to instructional, to maybe to be sort of co-instructional or some type of enhancement, because I'm not convinced that we were able to do this, during COVID, and some days when we have facility issues that warrant it. But I think as a standard, we should consider having some other things in place for those families, maybe, especially our kindergartners, and we got pre-K we're bringing online. I'd feel more comfortable. I am going to support this by way of vote, but I would like to put out there that I still am looking for a better version of what we would want to do with those youngers, to keep them out of going into June, supporting their academic, but recognizing the age and what that entails for a family, the average family, in support at home. So,
Thank you,
but
Ms.
thank you
Corkadell.
so much for being patient with us as we explore that, because that's what we're here for all of them, and different age groups have different needs, and so thank you very much.
Ms. Frank, did I see your light on? Okay. Ms. Schauheim, did you want? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Ms. Howe?
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schulheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Mr. Lynn?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item 7.06, fiscal year 2025 board budget priorities. Ms. Frank?
Yes. Do we have the operating budget draft, Ms. Howell? I move to adopt the operating budget priorities draft as approved by the Budget Committee.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Schauheim?
I do have a few amendments to this draft. Can I
Yeah,
just
so
go
we'll
ahead and
take
get
them one
started?
at a time.
Great. So I move to amend level 1, item 1, as follows, to strike the word appropriate and then to add the phrasing, a minimum compensation for all employees of $18 an hour. The rest of it remaining the same.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, let me see. Ms. Corkadell?
Thank you. I first want to thank my colleagues on the Budget Committee and our chair for, there's a lot of work that goes on in the background, and I like the process that we set up last year and continuing to improve on it, of course, and make it current and relevant for us. I also want to thank my colleague for making suggestions to how we can improve our running document. In this particular case, my only reservation about the amendment is establishing a hard number, because these are negotiated by and large, and I believe the vaguity of the language allows all of us to proceed in a healthier environment in there. I would hesitate to put anything in a priority that is so specific, particularly when we have not explored what that looks like from a fiscal perspective or otherwise. I think the goal to get it to a place, and I understand goals should be specific, but I think in cases of negotiated instances, in this particular amendment, I will be taking a pass on supporting it for the specific language of the per hour that is being suggested to be added in. But again, I fully support us striving to get all of our employees to a livable wage, and we have an ownership to that. I would just like us to see a little more flexibility given to the superintendent, because this is priorities for him to work with. And I'm not sure that a number per hour is a direction that should be in this document.
Ms. Frank.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Silkworth. I agree, and one of my concerns with adding a particular number value would be reminiscent of the concerns that came about when we had some bus driver discussions, and a number was circulated, and we could not perform to that number, and there were a lot of concerns, and there was a lot of backlash within the community. So I don't view it as prudent to sort of put a number dollar behind these particular goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frank. I would reiterate what my colleagues have said. I have a problem myself with $18 an hour. So having said that, Michelle Heim, last one.
No, I think we should vote and move on.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Howe.
Ms. Schulheim moved to amend priority number 1 to a minimum compensation for all employees of $18 per hour, including experience steps per contracts and resources to incentivize teachers to work in challenged schools. Ms. Corkadell?
No.
Ms. Schulheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Nay.
Mr. Lynn?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Nay.
Ms. Ellis?
Nay.
Mr. Silkworth?
Nay.
It's 2 in the affirmative and 5 in the negative. Motion fails.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Schulheim.
All right, my next amendment is to strike as appropriate from level 1, number 4. And so I moved for that line item to read student resources for those in need, policy area 4.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay.
And I'd like to speak to this one if I
yes,
could.
certainly.
So the superintendent always determines what is appropriate, where staffing should go. That's not our lane, and it's also it just makes sense for us to not have that extra language as he will always decide what is and is not appropriate in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schulheim. I'm looking for any other lights. Ms. Corkadell?
It off. Sorry. Thank you, Vice President Silkworth. Again, I appreciate that. I think my interpretation for as appropriate may be a little different. And in that we're an education agency, and we provide a lot of community and social services for our students. And we are, I believe, very good partners with many in our community who are helping. And our community needs our help, of course. But as an education agency, we need to recognize that we cannot be we cannot be the doctor in the room. We cannot completely do the parenting and the health and meet the medical health needs of all of our students. And so I believe as appropriate was intended to be that we are not social services, and obviously those who have a need and within our system, in order for us to achieve our educational goals, need to address it. So, and I probably did not say that very well. This is more ad hoc for me, but the bottom line is I think I am reading different what as appropriate is. In other words, we're not here to fund enough for each and every student when we know a lot of our students are able to receive those services, but rather to target our services to those who have historically been marginalized, who are our most vulnerable and current, and to make sure that we are prioritizing those individual students. And obviously making sure that it is available to all, but not to be the primary provider of those resources. So I'm open to some wordsmithing, but the removal of it entirely changes the definition dynamically. So if we would remove it, I would almost want to see something that would better speak to our mission and the role we play in all of these matters. That's why we have collaborations with our opportunity gaps as well as with our mental health task force and because we know it takes the whole village. And although we've provided everywhere from meals to mental health services, our job is to educate and educate each and every single student. And so targeting those resources to the greatest need first, I believe, is a way of achieving that. And that's sort of where I was leaning into on it. But I'm a little flexible on it, but I think the total removal of it, I would have some issues with.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Crocodile. Ms. Frank?
As appropriate is echoed in federal language when we discuss free and appropriate public education. I think the language is solid as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frank. Ms. Shahan?
Again, our superintendent has and will always determine staffing levels, so I think it's excessive to have this language in here. So I stand by
Thank
my
you, Ms.
motion.
Shahan.
Thank you.
So we have a motion on the floor. Ms. Howe?
Ms. Shaw, I move to amend priority number 4 to include, support resources for those in need, period. Ms. Corkadell?
Nay.
Ms. Schulheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Mr. Lynn?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Nay.
Ms. Ellis?
Nay.
Mr. Silkworth?
Nay.
3 in the affirmative and 4 in the negative, motion fails.
Okay, Ms. Shahan.
All right, 2 more. So under number 4, item C, after mental health supports, I wanted to add the language including school counselors, school psychologists, and social workers. So I move to add that language.
Do you have a second?
Looking for one.
Second.
Okay, we have a second, and I'm looking for some lights. Seeing none? Seeing none? Ms. Shahan?
No.
Oh, Ms. Ellis.
Okay.
I'm just seeking some clarification on the, I guess, what is driving this amendment?
Specificity?
Okay.
In a word.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking this one through a little bit, but I just wanted to see if you had anything to add.
Just specificity, to be specific.
Okay, I do not see any other lights, so Ms. Howe.
Ms. Shaw, I move to amend priority 4C to include mental health supports, including school counselors, school psychologists, and social workers. Ms. Corkadell?
Nay.
Ms. Schulheim,
Aye.
Ms. Dent,
Nay.
Mr. Lynn,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Nay.
Ms. Ellis,
Aye.
and Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
4 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative, motion fails.
All right, last one. Under level 2, number 6. We all know that ESSER funding cliffs are happening, and so I wanted to add the language ESSER funding cliff items, comma, including summer programs.
Second.
Summer programs are only part of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Schulheim. We have a motion and a second. And Ms. Crocodile.
So this one's a little challenging because this is in level 2. So I understand a little more flexibility as it relates to language for it. I guess the concern I have, is that summer programs was what I understand was submitted. ESSER funding cliff items are things we do identify in our budget, and they're projects that we do want to continue on. But I believe most of the other funding has already started to be addressed. So when I read it, I know that summer programs is part of ESSER funding, but I also know that we have already secured funds for a lot of the technology that ESSER had paid for, the compensation buffers, addendums, and eventually bonuses that were issued out for ESSER have now since been addressed through our more comprehensive compensation packages. So, and there are some little things here and there that we are also trying to address. So although I think I would have been very much on a high priority for this item for all of ESSER, I think focusing on the summer programs is what the big priority remains. And I'm not clear that this is not an addition to somebody else's submission or not. Not having time to review that. I do appreciate that and remain a proponent of ensuring that our cliff items are addressed. But my understanding is that we were kind of underway and our funders are doing what they do. And even the state has added another $150 million to the mental health and social emotional, that some of that was funding for that purpose. So from a priority perspective, I think the summer programs are more where I'm leaning into on the ESSER funding items. Now, we could very well have a few things left over that we're going to need to address, but not all of them hit our overall hot priorities as a whole, as a board. Some of the ESSER funding stuff is very utilitarian in nature. So that's where my hesitation is. But I do thank my colleague for bringing it to our attention and making sure it stays up on our radar as something important and something we need to make sure is we have continuity of funding for these programs. In some cases, items, in other cases that we have funded through ESSER.
Thank you, Ms. Crocodile. Ms. Ellis.
Thank you. Yeah, so I see what we're doing here today is, it's our statement to the superintendent as he's developing the budget that, these areas are the areas that we want to make sure are addressed and that are that there's a focus as the budget is being built. So for me, ESSER funding cliff items, that's talking about the source of the funds, and it doesn't specify areas that this board is focused on. So in other words, we could have a whole list of items that we spent money on, spent ESSER money on, and decide this is a priority, this is a priority, this is no longer a priority. But that's not what's before us. It's simply saying ESSER funding cliff items. I agree that summer programs are a priority. We saw a lot of benefits to enhancing our summer programs out of necessity as a result of COVID and ESSER funds, and I support trying to move that forward. But I won't be supporting, I don't see myself supporting simply calling it ESSER funding cliff items and not specifying what it is that we're calling a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Ms. Shaheen.
Yes, returning to the Excel sheet that was put up on board docs that we all submitted to, my exact wording for those on the budget committee and for those listening at home was ESSER cliff funding, including maintaining free academic summer programming. So this was something that I wanted to keep on our radar, to keep specifically on this board's radar. Yes, it's a huge pot of money, or once was. It's now diminishing. We have to either backfill that those programs with sustainable funding or see them go the way of the dodo. And so that was the impetus for me trying to edit this document accordingly, to be sure that my voice as a board member was heard. So vote it up or down, it's up to you, but that was the impetus for this and my other amendments this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaheen. Seeing no more lights, Ms. Howe.
Ms. Schalheim moved to amend priority number 6, ESSER funding cliff items, including summer programs. Ms. Corkadell?
Nay.
Ms. Schalheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Mr. Lynn?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Nay.
Ms. Ellis?
Nay.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
4-3, motion fails.
Okay. That concludes the amendments?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Shaheen. So now I think that brings us back to the motion for the operating budget priorities. And we have a motion, we have a second. I'm looking for some lights. Okay, see no lights. Ms. Howe. Oh, Ms. Frank, Ms. Frank.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify one aspect of this particular document that was not mentioned previously. When the committee is looking at level 1 versus level 2, the idea behind this is that we're giving a roadmap, that the level 1 is really the immediate concerns for this year, but we have concerns that we want to, as a board, move forward into next year as well. And so this is a bit of a roadmap. So when we look at this document as a whole, clearly we have 4 main priorities, and then we have a sort of subsequent set of priorities. So I just wanted to clarify that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frank. Okay, Ms. Howe.
Ms. Frank moved that the Board of Education approve the recommendation for the FY25 operating budget priorities. Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schalheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Mr. Lynn?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. So that brings us to item 7.07, the May Mako Time to Care Act Insurance Collaborative. Before we hear from staff, I'm going to recognize Ms. Corkadell.
Thank you. I am a big good governance geek and transparency. And I am president-elect currently for the NABE Association. And although I don't make the decisions at all, at virtually any level on the insurance side of things, I do instruct the budget as it relates to support of them. And although there's no technical conflict of interest, I do think it's important in the interest of transparency and the fact that someone could misconstrue my position with MABE with a conflict of interest in an adoption of this. So I'm going to remove myself and go back to our caucus room until the conclusion of this debate so that no, gesture or anything like that is going to intervene with or influence someone else's vote. And although seemingly simple and silly, I don't think it's silly for us to be transparent about and recognize the perception part of ethics. The perception is probably more important than the actual, I think, in some cases. So thank you very much, Vice President Silkworth, for affording me a personal moment of privilege, and I'm going to leave the room for a minute.
Thank you, Ms. Crocodile. Mr. Stansky.
For the record, Matt Stansky, Chief Financial Officer.
Jessica Custis, Chief Human Resources Officer.
As the board is aware, the legislature passed the Time to Care Act in the 2022 session. House Bill 988 amended that law in the 2023 session. Essentially, what the law does is provide a paid Family Medical Leave Act benefit to employees, requiring both employers and employees to pay into an insurance fund to give employees a benefit of up to $1,000 a week, depending on their hourly wage or annual wage, to provide a paid benefit for family medical leave. Obviously, the federal government law provides 12 weeks of unpaid leave. And so it is incumbent upon employers now in Maryland to determine how to best approach and pay for this. Ms. Cutchins and I have been in conversations with our partners in county government, as well as other districts around the state. And you really have three options. One is to participate in the state plan. The second is to go out on your own to either self-perform or seek private insurance to cover the payments, this benefit payment, or you can obviously partner with other jurisdictions. After doing some extensive research, it was determined that our best course forward was to enter into this collaborative that is being sponsored by the Maryland Association of Boards of Education and the Maryland Association of Counties. Our Anne Arundel County government has signaled their intent to participate in this program as well. And so we are looking for the board's approval tonight to signal our intent to participate in the MABE-MACO collaborative. Payments would not begin for this insurance program until the law takes effect in January of 2026. So it actually buys us another year of time to plan out, to budget out properly, and to implement and obviously do any negotiations we would have to do with our labor partners. And so with that, Mr. President, we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. So I'm looking at the lights and I don't see any lights, but I do have one question or statement. For our staff and our employees, I just want to make sure that they become aware of this. This for them is not an option. It's a mandate. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Both employers and employees are mandated to participate in this in order, and obviously then are subject to having the benefit available to them if they so need it.
Right. And can you repeat one more time when it will take effect so everyone out there can hear that again?
Yes, employees can start filing claims on January 1st, 2026.
And deductions from their pay
would be the same, January of 2026, subject to negotiations with our labor partners.
Correct. Okay, so once again, I'm looking for lights. I see no lights. We need a motion. We need a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a second. Okay, and I see no lights at this point in time. Ms. Howe?
Ms. Schalheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Mr. Lynn?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you so much. So that brings us to item 8, public comments on non-agenda items. We do have two individuals speaking this evening. And I'm just going to reiterate that it is not the board's general practice to engage in questions and answer session with speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking. Any handouts should be given to the board assistant. We ask speakers to observe the 2-minute clock. A yellow light will shine when you have 30 seconds remaining, and a tone will sound when your time has expired. Please conclude your remarks when you hear the tone. The first individual this evening we have is Catherine Davis. And Maria Jimena Moses. You could both come on up. Ms. Davis, you'll be first.
Good evening. My name's Katie Davis, former student at AACPS, and I have 2 children who are current students. Thank you, members of the board, Vice President Silkworth, Dr. Bedell. Banned Books Week is October 1st through 7th. It celebrates the freedom to read and spotlights current and historical attempts to censor books in libraries and schools. The freedom to read is central to democracy. By focusing on efforts across the country to remove or restrict access to books, Banned Books Week draws national attention to the harms of censorship. In a time of intense political polarization, library staff in every state are facing an unprecedented number of attempts to ban books. The American Library Association documented over 1,000 demands to censor library books and resources, doubling the number of book challenges reported in 2021. Most targeted books were by or about LGBTQIA+ persons and Black, Indigenous, and people of color. When we ban books, we're closing off readers to people, places, and perspectives. But when we stand up for stories, we unleash the power that lies inside every book. As a parent, I already have rights when it comes to my children's education. I would say to people in the parents' rights movement, don't shirk your responsibilities under the guise of freedom, rights, and liberty. As parents, it's our job, our responsibility to communicate our values to our own children. If you're doing your job well, your kid will come to you when they come across something uncomfortable on the internet, on TV, or in a book. If you shame and blame and are an authoritarian, they aren't going to come to you about much. Don't limit access for other people's kids. You don't have the right to infringe on the rights of others by determining what their children can read. I trust my kids' teachers. I trust the school librarians. Book bans and censorship are topics in other Maryland school systems. When this comes to our county and in this setting, I urge the board to have continued trust in the librarians that AACPS has hired to do the job that they have been trained to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Moses.
I start? On August 23rd, County Executive Pittman emphasized Superintendent Mark Bedell's unwillingness to accept mediocrity. But this slogan is merely marketing collateral if actions are not in tandem. My name is Maria Jimena Moses, and I here represent 20 families in the community of South River Heights in Riva that were affected by a sudden and inexplicable decision to cancel the 2 stop buses inside our community. For more than 30 years, school buses stopped at Tudor Hall first and then Spring Cove Road. There are about 20 kids that ride bus 26, leased to Smith Bus Company. The Department of Transportation was contacted by all of us. Mr. Goodman, the manager of operations, copied and pasted the same reply to all of us, saying that it was a decision solely based on safety. According to him, having 20 elementary school aged kids on River Road is safer than in our quiet streets. Now, bus 26 stops on River Road at the corner of Tudor Hall first, and then a block later on River Road and Center. The new stop at the corner of River Road and Center has no buffer, and it's a 3-foot wide sidewalk on River Road, immediately next to the cars speeding over 50 miles an hour. On both sides, within a 6-block span, there are 2 flashing speeding signs to slow down. Why? because the county has deemed this is a high-speed area where cars and trucks fly down. In the past 3 months, we all have recollected more than 20 accidents just in the portion of River Road. There is absolutely no reason why we should have our little ones standing on River Road. In the two corners of River Road and Center, there is a bush in one side and a fence on the other. No room for kids to gather. We wait on Center, literally in the middle of the street. And the Department of Transportation proposed as a solution that we parents accompany our children, as if we could do anything about that. And, excuse me, when we were asked for research to back up the safety claim of our streets being so, we were told that our streets were narrow and unsafe. Mr. Goodman's email, please see this email and his picture sent to us. It was downloaded by Google. The picture did not represent any of the streets that Bus 26 was running on. It was taken at a
Could you
different time.
please summarize, Ms. Moses?
We need your help to reinstate the stops. You have everything in here. I ran out of time, but I emailed you, Dr. Bedell, several times. I emailed the Department of Transportation. No one contacted me.
All right, thank you. Thank
Thank
you. Thank you, Ms. Moses. So ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the meeting this evening. I have a few announcements. Policy Committee will be meeting on Tuesday, September 26th, a virtual meeting at 3 o'clock. General Board meeting, the next meeting is Thursday, October the 5th, 12 p.m. boardroom meeting here. Budget Committee, Monday, October 16th, that's virtual at 12 p.m. Public hearing, Phase 1 redistricting plan, Monday, October 16th, 6 p.m. here in the boardroom. And finally, Equity Committee, Tuesday, October 24, 2023, 3 p.m. virtual meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Thank you. Good night.